These are not easy circumstances, and I know how difficult the uncertainty can be. But you are not alone. The planning and ensuring communities have access to the assistance that they need as conditions evolve. As of this morning, there are approximately 600 properties under evacuation order and 5,700 properties under evacuation alert. The majority of the evacuation alerts are due to the Matthew Creek wildfire near Kimberley, where approximately 5,300 properties are under alert. For anyone currently under evacuation alert, or if you live in an area at risk for wildfires, now is the time to prepare. Review your emergency plan. Make sure your grab-and-go bag is ready, and stay informed by following updates from your local government or First Nation. Additionally, people can pre-register for emergency support services at ess.gov.bc.ca through the BC Services Card app, or phone the BC Evacuee Helpline at 1-800-387-4258. The Evacuee Helpline hours are Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 5, and can be extended for events as needed. Information on evacuation alerts and evacuation orders, including recommended actions to take, is available at emergencyinfobc.ca. And for those who have been evacuated, support is available. As of this morning, emergency support services are supporting approximately 430 people who have been evacuated from their homes, and teams are supporting people who need help meeting their basic needs, such as accommodation, food, clothing, and other incidentals. Information on how to access emergency support services will be included in any evacuation order issued by your local government or First Nation. We know that wildfires can have a significant emotional and psychological toll on people and families. If you are feeling overwhelmed, know that support is available. Emergency services responders can help people who have been evacuated with mental health and wellness resources. People can also call the 310 mental health support line at 310-6789. And for those who have friends or family living in wildfire-affected areas, I encourage you to reach out to them. A phone call, a text message, or simply checking in can make a real difference during a difficult time. The wildfire activity we're seeing across British Columbia is partly being driven by hot and dry conditions. Environment and Climate Change Canada has issued yellow heat warnings throughout much of the province. And heat can affect anyone, but some are at higher risk, like infants and young children, older adults, and those with medical conditions. Check on your family, friends, and neighbors to make sure they have access to a cool space, particularly those who are at higher risk or those who live alone with pre-existing health conditions. Check your local government or First Nation or for information about cooling centres, or view the map at emergencyinfobc.ca. The work that goes into supporting people and communities during emergencies happens long before an evacuation order or alert is issued. And that's why our government continuously supports communities with resources, coordination, and the support that they need to prepare for and respond to emergencies. Local governments and First Nations Emergency Operations Centre can receive provincial support directly from our EMCR Provincial Regional Emergency Operations Centres 24/7. And earlier today, we announced $3.5 million for 110 projects that will strengthen local emergency operations centres throughout BC under the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. This fund, which was established in 2017, supports training, exercises, and equipment to help communities prepare for future emergencies. Because we know that preparedness matters and helps us respond effectively when an emergency happens. Now, before I turn it over, I want to reiterate that we all have steps that we need to take to prepare for what could be challenging days and nights ahead of us. This is a team effort. And the most important thing people can do is stay informed, be prepared, and follow the directions of your local authority. To learn more about how to be prepared, visit preparedbc.ca and pre-register for emergency support services at ess.gov.bc.ca. And to those working on the front lines, whether you're a firefighter, a first responder, ESS responder, search and rescue member, if you work for a local government, a First Nation, or the province, I know this is demanding work. It's important work, and I want to thank you for your commitment to keeping people safe. Thank you. And I'd like to now turn it over to Minister Neill.
Thank you very much, Minister Greene. We are of the Shoshone Nation on the Sunshine Coast. As Minister Greene said, my name is Randene Neill. I'm BC's Minister of Waterland and Resource Stewardship. And like my colleagues, my thoughts are with everyone who is currently impacted by the wildfires, the smoke, and the drought conditions that are affecting farmers. This hot, dry weather, as Minister Greene said, has made wildfire conditions worse in recent weeks and increased drought conditions in many parts of the province. We've had prolonged dry periods over the last number of years, and elevated drought conditions are forecast to continue across much of BC this summer. You're seeing more municipalities increase their water restrictions. Kamloops is the latest, going to stage 4. So we're again asking every single British Columbia, water users, suppliers, residents, and businesses to take action now to conserve water and reduce water scarcity risks. Some parts of the province are experiencing very low stream flows, especially in the Okanagan, where we're actually seeing record-setting lows. Declining stream flows and rising water temperatures place additional stress on fish and aquatic ecosystems. And today I'm asking everyone in the Okanagan particularly to help conserve water. Together, we can help maintain stream flows, support fish and habitats, protect drinking water, and reduce pressure on local watersheds. Two of the watersheds we are closely watching in this province are Bissett Creek and Salmon River, both in the Okanagan. Salmon River and Bissett Creek are currently experiencing such low stream flows that we are concerned about fish population survival, particularly Chinook salmon. We are working closely with nations, local governments, industry partners, agriculture producers, and watershed experts to monitor conditions and coordinate responses. I met with the Okanagan agriculture community last week. I know farmers in the Salmon River area are implementing a voluntary irrigation schedule in the hopes that stream flows will increase. I want to thank them for all their efforts, and we will continue to meet with all of those groups and work closely with agriculture. I also want to acknowledge the agriculture community in the Nicola Valley for voluntarily setting up an irrigation schedule in an effort to conserve water. I know how difficult drought is for BC's farmers, and we appreciate everything you do to work together. Voluntary conservation is always our first and preferred step, but when those stream flows drop to critical levels and species are at risk, we must consider temporary protection orders. They are only considered when voluntary conservation measures are not enough to prevent serious or irreversible harm to aquatic ecosystems. Those orders are targeted and designed to restore and protect critical stream flows as quickly as possible. So as we work to respond to drought in the Okanagan and across the province, we all have a role to play in using less water. We know small changes to conserve water add up quickly, and they can help maintain stream flows, protect ecosystems, and reduce the need for stricter rules. So thank you to everyone in this province who's working to conserve water. And thank you again to all the emergency responders, water managers, and community leaders who are working every day to keep us safe. I'd now like to turn it over to Minister Parmar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Neill. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi Parmar, and I have the honour to serve as British Columbia's Minister of Forests and Minister responsible for the BC Wildfire Service. I'm here to provide an update on the current wildfire situation in British Columbia. But before we get into that, I want to acknowledge the decision made by President Donald Trump to impose 50% tariffs on Canada. It is continuing to be disappointing to see the depths the President will go to further alienate one of his largest trading partners. Much as we've seen with the tariffs and duties on softwood lumber products, this is going to increase costs for Americans and harm Canadian workers. The decision comes at the same time as harmful and misguided rhetoric from certain U.S. officials, including the President, regarding Canadian wildfires. Recent criticism that Canada isn't doing enough to manage its forests and wildfires, much like the decision to impose new tariffs, there is no legitimate basis for this claim against Canada. Climate change is impacting wildfires on both sides of the border, creating real challenges that require real action not finger pointing. For Canadian provinces and U.S. states alike, this is a new reality. But last year, we stepped up to help our neighbors in California, and we stand ready to do it again if the call comes. Our position hasn't changed. Helping each other is what Canadians do best, and it is what we will continue to do regardless of what the President's punitive decisions and unfounded criticism come next. Since my last update, many parts of British Columbia have seen an uptick in wildfire activity. As predicted, recent summer storms led to over 33,000 lightning strikes in just the past week. This has led to an increase in the number of active wildfires burning across British Columbia. As of this morning, there are 87 active wildfires throughout the province, including 4 that have started in the last 24 hours and 24 that were declared out in the same period. There are currently 4 wildfires of note. First, the Bootleg Complex in the Southeast Fire Centre, where 2 new wildfires of note, Matthew Creek and Tower Creek, have resulted in evacuation alerts for people living in and around Kimberley, BC. And of course, the Brunswick Creek Complex wildfires in the Coastal Fire Centre. Evacuation orders and alerts remain in place for Boston Bar and surrounding communities. British Columbians' thoughts are with the people and families directly impacted by these evacuations, orders, and alerts. The province is doing everything we can to support those communities. The BC Wildfire Service has been responding vigorously to wildfires throughout the province, with response teams getting fires out before they grow. Of the 182 wildfires that started this past week, 80% of them are already classified as being out, being held, or under control. The majority of new wildfire starts, not matter where they are being kept under 10 hectares. Thanks to the swift, effective action from our BC Wildfire Service crews and local firefighters and other partners, including wildland contractors, the Signal Hill wildfire near Pemberton was contained quickly and is now listed as being held, which means it isn't expected to further spread. Although conditions have helped keep wildfires in check this summer, it is hard work, planning, partnerships, and investments that have made a big difference this year. Only 2 days ago, for the first time in Canada's history, we in the BC Wildfire Service utilized a drone to complete a planned ignition on an active wildfire within the Brunswick complex, successfully reducing the risk of the fire spreading south. This is an exciting new step in wildfire suppression here in BC. These ignitions are often done by hand or by helicopter and are a key part in managing wildfires in very challenging terrain. I'm proud that British Columbia is once again leading the way with this technology while helping to keep our crews safe. At the same time, we've partnered this year with Integrated Operations Group, a great BC company, to deploy a first-of-its-kind remote-controlled water cannon that is now assisting crews as they work to contain fires. Heavy equipment and structure protection crews have been working tirelessly day and night to keep homes, businesses, and our natural resources safe wherever they are threatened. There are more than 700 BC Wildfire Service personnel engaged in the firefighting effort today. Air tankers have hit over 50 targets this week, giving ground crews much-needed support. And night vision technology has kept operations running around the clock, on the ground and in the air. In the days ahead, as my colleagues have noted, we're expecting more challenging weather. Hot, dry conditions and limited rain will continue to impact southern areas of the province. This, coupled with strong winds and widespread thunderstorms, we will likely once again see a jump in new wildfire starts. This past week has been a reminder of how fast our wildfire situation can change. This was our first test this past weekend with the wildfire season, as the numbers jumped over only a matter of hours. Thanks to our incredible teams within the BC Wildfire Service, British Columbia was able to respond with strength, innovation, and persistence. As the premiers of our country prepare to meet with the Prime Minister this week, I want British Columbians to know that we are going to continue to lead the discussion in Canada. It's fair to say that wildfires will be a top item on the agenda. In wildfire response, investment in innovation, and active forest management, BC is leading the way. As we head further into the summer, it is vital that we all continue to take the necessary steps to remain prepared, and that we continue to do our part to prevent human-caused wildfires. Please stay vigilant and follow the fire prohibitions in your region, including 2 new prohibitions that are impacting the province coming in later this week. Always check with your local government bylaws before starting a fire. You can find more information about prohibitions, evacuations, driving conditions, and the current wildfire situation on the BC Wildfire Service website or app. Please continue to report wildfires using the wildfire app or by calling star 5555 from a cell phone. I also want to remind everyone to leave your drone at home and keep the waterways clear so that aviation crews can do their work safely. Lastly, I want to thank the BC Wildfire Service for their hard work and dedication. Nearly 85% of the fires this year are considered out or contained. That's an extraordinary testament to the work of our wildland firefighters, local fire departments, and all of our partners. But we still have several weeks of this wildfire season left. We all have a role to play in protecting ourselves and our communities. So my ask of all British Columbians is, once again, stay informed, be prepared, be fire smart, listen to local authorities. Our work is about the safety of the people we care deeply about, the safety of our communities, and the safety of the province we all love. Thanks very much, and I'll welcome Minister Greene back up to the podium for questions.
Thank you. We have some time for questions. We also have technical experts online, including Kevin Dunbar, Executive Director, Provincial Response and Recovery Operations, Ministry of EMCR, Sarah Henderson, Scientific Director of Environmental Health Services at BC CDC, and of the National Collaborating Centre for Environmental Health, Connie Chapman, Executive Director, Water Management Branch, WLRS, Curtis Isfield, Director of the Fire Centre Operations, BC Wildfire Service, Morgan Blois, I apologize, Morgan, Information Officer, Brunswick Complex, BC Wildfire Service, and Hugh Murdoch, Incident Commander, Bootleg Complex of the Matthew Creek Fire, BC Wildfire Service.
Thank you, Minister. We will take questions from the media now. Media in the room, please state your name and outlet before asking the question. 1 question and 1 follow-up only.
Corey Correa, CBC News. For Minister Parmar, please. It looks like around 100 wood and paper products are affected by these new tariffs, potential tariffs. What impact will this have on local industry? What's the plan to cope if these tariffs take effect? Are there supports for the industry planned, pushing for harder exports to other countries?
Yeah, let me be very clear. The continued actions by Donald Trump in the United States are having a devastating impact on our forest sector. It is leading to mill closures and curtailments and value-added companies looking to invest elsewhere. This latest step to impose 50% tariffs will absolutely have an impact on the forest sector in British Columbia. The Premier noted that in his remarks from Prince Edward Island earlier today, and I expect it is going to be top of mind in conversations amongst all the premiers, including the Prime Minister later this week. We've been very clear that we know that our relationship with the United States has changed forever. We're certainly heartened to hear that trade talks with the United States will intensify in the days ahead. I want to remind the federal government, as I'm sure the Premier is, that for British Columbia forestry and the sectors that you named in your question, that is our auto sector, that is our steel sector. We have over 100,000 plus jobs reliant on our ability to get this right. We want to provide Americans with the lumber to build their homes. We want to provide Americans with all of the wood products they need to be able to build successful communities. And so we're hopeful over the next 30 days that we will be able to resolve this issue. But let me be rest assured that we are also going to continue doing the necessary work to pivot. We believe British Columbia can compete on the global stage and win. And so that's why we're going to continue to diversify our economy and make more in BC.
Thank you. And one on wildfires, please. Maybe Minister Parmar's best position for this. We're facing another summer of smoky skies and evacuations. It seems to be the new normal in BC. Are there any new strategies the province can adopt to prevent wildfires?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm immensely proud of the work that the BC Wildfire Service does year-round. It was just a few years ago that our government made the strategic decision to make the BC Wildfire Service a year-round operation. And I think, as you've seen in the stats that I've shared in my remarks, it has been a very successful season for us. No doubt that there are challenging wildfires, and my thoughts are continuing to be with the people in Boston Bar and the Fraser Canyon, and of course to the residents of Kimberley. I've had an opportunity to be able to speak to local government officials in both of those communities and regions. But again, when you look at the technology, when you look at the innovation, and you look at the continued investments that we are making in our people, it is resulting in the majority of wildfires being contained in a small hectare. And so we're going to continue making that investment. I still believe very strongly that the best wildfire is the one that never starts. And so that preparation work will continue to be a priority. We are focusing in British Columbia on an active forest regime that allows us to be able to do more wildfire mitigation work, in particular in wildland urban interface areas. So while we continue to invest in innovation and technology and wildfire suppression, we'll also continue to invest in wildfire mitigation. We have over 500 projects just in the last couple of years, with 200 plus that are active and underway right now. And certainly we'll continue to make more of those projects available to local governments in partnership in the years ahead.
Hi, Joe Sadowski with City News Vancouver. This question will be open for either minister or one of the experts available. I'm just curious to hear more about how this drone was able to mitigate some of the wildfire risk in the Boston Bar and the Fraser Canyon. If you're able to explain just how it works and exactly what it was used for to, provide some relief in that fire that's burning at over 4,000 hectares.
I'll turn that over online to Morgan.
Technology that we trialed yesterday and the day before in terms of the ignitions that we did on the Brunswick Creek wildfire. Essentially, that just provides us a way to, one, have less folks in the air with a helicopter, so preventing some risk to our personnel on the ground as well as in the air. And that technology was used to drop PSD balls into the forest floor that will ignite on impact, and essentially, allow a slow rate of spread for a controlled burn to happen that, led to our fuel free, where ground crews were stationed to hold it and prevent any further unwanted spread, essentially. So, it's just really cool to see different technology being brought into our response in terms of wildfires and preventing spread through planned ignitions.
I'll pass it off to my colleague here.
Hi, I'm a reporter from the Canadian Press. My name is Nono Shen. I have a question for Minister Neill. Because you mentioned about the record low stream flows in Okanagan, I wonder what options are there to save fish in those waterways that are threatened. Thank you.
Thanks, Nono, for the question. We've been working really closely with the community there, particularly for the Salmon River and Bissett Creek areas. We met with a lot of the producers I guess a couple of weeks now, maybe less than 2 weeks ago, to talk about different options that they have in Salmon River. The producers there have voluntarily given themselves an irrigation schedule to be able to try to increase the flows of that river, and also importantly, lower the water temperature of that water so the juvenile Chinook salmon can leave the stream and go out and come back. So those are some of the things that we're working on. We're working on longer term solutions as well with those producers in that area to ensure that we can have a steady flow of water year round, even in drought conditions. And those are longer term solutions that we will continue to work on with those producers in the months and years to come.
Thanks. And I have a follow-up for Minister Greene or Minister Parmar. Is there a number of how many buildings have been lost in the fire so far this year?
I will turn that over online.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. At the moment, a number of local authorities will be undertaking damage assessments and understanding the number of buildings that have been impacted or structures as well. I think what's important to remember is these are areas of active fire and active risk. So the damage assessment work will be happening after the fires are passed, evacuation orders are lifted, and so all local governments and First Nations will have the most up-to-date information on this. And when the province receives the final damage assessment reports, we'll be able to share that information. But for the most up-to-date information, always encourage get in touch with the local governments and First Nations directly. Thank you. And First Nations directly. Thank you.
Hi there, Aaron MacArthur, Global News. Question for Minister Parmar. I want to pick up on the forest mitigation, fire mitigation piece. You'd mentioned Donald Trump pointing fingers at British Columbia's management practices, but there are local scientists who also criticize British Columbia's local fire mitigation strategy, forest management strategy. How do you respond to those criticisms, and how much money will it take to adequately manage BC's forests to prevent hotter, faster moving fires?
Well, Aaron, I would say that we've got one thing that is an obstacle for us here in British Columbia that would help us mitigate and help protect communities right now, and that is Donald Trump literally picking up a pen and signing a document eliminating duties and tariffs, 45% duties and tariffs on our Canadian softwood lumber heading down south. And so that, I would argue, would be the biggest impact in our ability to be able to help protect our communities that would lead to less smoke heading down south. I would encourage him to do that. But I would also say that we are taking considerable steps with record investments over the last number of years in wildfire mitigation work, the work that our community forests do in different parts of the province to be able to not only get timber value, but do it in a way that mitigates wildfire risks, impacting in particular rural communities is critically important. As I noted, we have completed over 500 wildfire mitigation projects. We have 200 underway. We are going to continue to make the necessary investments. Like I said in a previous answer, the best fire is the one that never happens. And so with those investments, we're going to continue to ensure that we can have an active forest management regime. I would welcome any scientist, any British Columbian to my table to be able to have this conversation. And in fact, I have tasked my forest minister's committee on the FERPA Act specifically on the steps that we need to take in terms of permitting and efficiencies to be able to unlock more of this. And the last piece I would add is we had a piece of legislation in the House, Bill 14, which passed unanimously with the support of all parties, that is going to lead with 20% of the Crown tenure being in the hands of BC Timber Sales and our ability to do more work in relation to commercial thinning, selective logging, and partial harvesting, wildfire resilience work. And I'm looking forward to being in Prince George in the next couple of weeks to talk about the next steps that we're going to be taking to lead this work, not just in Prince George, but across the province.
We are going to the phone next. We have Dan from CTV News. Please go ahead.
Did you mean Ben from CTV News?
Yes. Yes, Dan. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. It's Ben Milger, CTV Vancouver. Minister Parmar mentioned most new starts have been contained under 10 hectares over the past week or so. Is anyone from the BC Wildfire Service able to talk about how you coordinate that rapid response and how important it is to get a handle on those fires before they get bigger than that?
I'll turn that over online to Curtis.
Thank you for the question. Really comes down to our response starts with preparedness. So as the minister alluded to, we monitor the conditions very closely. As those conditions give us signals that they're going to change, we're a very mobile organization, and we will pre-position the required resources to where they need to be across the province. We take great pride in our initial attack and an aggressive initial attack. And as the weather shifts and we start to see some of those systems coming in, we have resources at the ready to be able to deploy.
Thank you. My follow-up question. My follow-up question is for Minister Greene. Are you able to share more details on the evacuees who are receiving support? I think you said there were over 400. Where were they evacuated from? What kind of accommodations have been provided? And are any third-party organizations helping coordinate that effort?
I'll get you some of the details from Kevin online, but first I just want to reiterate that if you are evacuated due to wildfire or other emergency, the province is here to support. We made a number of changes to emergency support services to make it easier to access, including being able to register online and receive your supports by a direct e-transfer so that you can make the choices that are best for you and your family, including a $200 accommodation allowance that allows you to seek accommodation wherever in the province that is best for you, whether that's at a family member's house, a hotel that you are familiar with, or even going to a campground. And I'll turn it over to Kevin Dunbar.
Really, to start with, I think our heart goes out to anyone impacted by wildfires across the province, particularly those evacuated. It can be incredibly disruptive to your life, to your family, to work. So our hearts go out to those people. In terms of locations, there are about 600 properties impacted by evacuation orders across the province. The majority of those are throughout the Fraser Canyon, including all local authorities affected by fires in and around the Boston Bar area. And as Minister mentioned, we are working very closely with all local authorities and First Nations to ensure that people are getting the emergency support services that they need. And that can include people finding their own accommodation or referrals to various accommodation throughout the province. And we work very closely with local ESS, or Emergency Support Services programs, which are staffed by some very, very dedicated volunteers as well, who are working around the clock to ensure that if somebody is evacuated and if they need support, they're getting the supports they need. So a big thank you to our volunteers who are supporting alongside all of the first responders and individuals working across emergency operation centers around the province. Thank you. Across emergency operation centers around the province. Thank you.
Next, we have Jess Winter from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. First question for Minister Parmar. Yesterday, Premier Ford spoke about what he believes is a need for a national wildfire strategy. There's a recent Senate committee report that also called for the creation of a national wildfire and emergency management office. I'm curious if you can speak to your thoughts about the need for essentially sort of a Canadian FEMA to help manage these kinds of fire seasons.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. I had this conversation, and I'm sure my colleague did as well with our counterpart in Ottawa just a couple of months back about the need for federal involvement. I would say very strongly, as the Premier acknowledged in a press conference last week here in Vancouver, that we are not looking for the federal government to come in and take over. We have invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and we feel very strongly, and I feel very strongly, that we have a world-class organization in the BC Wildfire Service, and we have shown that we can not only support our own province, but also support other jurisdictions as well. So I guess what I'll be looking for from the federal government, and I'm sure the Premier will be reiterating this in his conversations with Premier Ford and the other premiers as well, is investments from the federal government in prevention and risk mitigation and rapid detection and initial attack, and modernizing forest management in the areas of wildfire mitigation, in particular, community protection and preparedness that my colleague leads, and of course, in the case of communities like Lytton, recovery and long-term resilience. The Premier, on behalf of British Columbia, will certainly be relaying those expectations, and will be also offering British Columbia to continue to be a leader in supporting other jurisdictions in this work.
Do you have a follow-up?
Second question for Mr. Murdoch. Can you give us a bit of an update on how containment is going in the Kimberley area? What do you think the next few days could look like?
Hugh?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for that question. Crews are continuing to make progress. There's heavy equipment working, building access and contingency guards. There's unit crew and initial attack crews on the ground, and they're getting support overhead from a variety of helicopters. I think we've got 5 helicopters, including 2 heavy lift helicopters working on it. More resources are en route, and we're looking to develop a large water delivery system, which sort of touches into that challenge of some creeks that are, low stream flows that are difficult for the helicopters to bucket out of. So we just have to be moving the water to a different location, filling up a tank, and then making those heavy lift helicopters all the more effective. There's 7 fires in our complex, 2 that are at the root of the evacuation alerts for Kimberley. And I could suggest that the growth on these fires has been minimal in the last couple of days, in part due to the assistance of Mother Nature, but also the efforts of the ground crews and the air crews. That said, we are aware that the weather will not always be so cooperative, and we're looking at Thursday as a significant weather day, which is why we're bringing in more resources to continue the good fight.
Next up, we have Peter from Country Life in BC. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Good morning. Just glad to hear that some effort is being made to preserve water in the Salmon and Bissett Creek areas. But do you have further details on the irrigation schedule, or what that actually looks like? Is it 3 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 4 days off, as in the Nicola? And I guess more important, how much time is that going to buy producers who are trying to get in their second cut?
I'll pass that online to Connie Chapman.
Thank you, Minister Greene. We don't have the full details of the irrigation schedule, as Minister Neill indicated earlier in her statement. These irrigation schedules are voluntarily being implemented. What we do know is that they are working with a water resource specialist being supported through the Ministry of Agriculture, and we have seen great success with these types of schedules in other watersheds, such as the Coxsila. So we are very happy to hear that these irrigation schedules are being put in place to try and help and offset. I do know that they are working together as a community to find a balance to try and meet all the different needs and competing interests with the different components of the agricultural sector within these watersheds. As it pertains to the flows right now, Salmon and Bissett are at record lows. We do continue to see the Salmon River decline with its flow, whereas Bissett seems to be kind of just doing a little bit of a wiggle and holding. So not clear as to how much water may be returned into these systems from the schedule and what it may or may not be able to buy in the sense of time. What we are really watching is just trying to get that flow specifically in Salmon and Bissett up to that critical level for the survival of the fish population, so that the damage to that population doesn't occur, or that there is a hope of being able to retain the population.
Peter, do you have a follow-up?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So in speaking with ranchers and industry yesterday, I understand the beavers have successfully raised the height of the Boline Dam by about 40 centimeters, and the industry actually wants it up to about 1 meter. So I'm just curious how fast the province is going to be beavering away to raise the level of that dam, and if there's actually going to be any support maybe from the federal government with their food security strategy to accelerate some of these much needed water storage projects.
I'll pass that to Minister Randene Neill.
The question in terms of how quickly we're going to be doing this, we're doing this really quickly. This is something we're speaking actively with the Cattlemen's Association, who is really kind of pushing this initiative, particularly on the Boline with all the other producers in the area. So I'm hoping to head out there next week to take a look. Again, quite frankly, we've had to issue temporary protection orders on the Salmon and Bissett rivers, I think in 2021, in 2024, and in 2025. So we don't want to have to keep doing this. We want to look for long-term solutions with the producers who are doing such a great job and being so proactive and trying to conserve their water, so they don't have to be in this situation year after year. So there's a lot of urgency to this, a lot of seeking permanent solutions that ensure that there will be no more water scarcity in those areas. And we're working with the farmers in different groups like the Cattlemen's Association.
Next, we have Trevor Crowley from Breakfast Media. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Question probably for Minister Greene. Just wondering if you've had any conversations with Kimberley Mayor Don McCormick about the evacuation alert out there, and not to pitch a hypothetical, but heaven forbid it turned into an evacuation order. I'm wondering if you can sort of explain the logistics that go into having to evacuate an entire city, and what the support would look like from the province.
Yeah, our office is well connected with the mayor and regional district. I know my colleague, Minister Parmar, has also reached out. It's fortunate. We don't always have this case where we have several days, if not perhaps more, to prepare what different contingency plans look like in the event that there is the need for evacuating a large number of people from the Kimberley area. We are working very closely assisting on those plans. We know that there are complicated times when you evacuate that many people, particularly when we're doing it in tourism season. We have, as I mentioned before, the $200 a night accommodation allowance to allow flexibility for people in where they decide to evacuate to, but we are also planning for group lodging, so that in the event that we need to be able to stand that up, that's available, and we are pre-positioning resources to be able to enable that should it become necessary. But I will pass it over to Kevin Dunbar online as well.
Thank you, Minister, and thanks for the question. So the province is well prepared in case of evacuations. Now, it's important to remember that any evacuation like this is complex and disruptive, and our focus is on working with local governments and First Nations to keep people informed and keep people safe. We've been working very closely with the regional district and the city of Kimberley to prepare multiple evacuation scenarios and support them in the preparedness and execution of any evacuations as necessary. We have pre-positioned assets and partners available to establish group lodging facilities at short notice if it is required. I think it's also important to remember if there are large-scale evacuations in the middle of tourism season, there may be a shortage of hotel and other accommodations. So in addition to the group lodging that we'll be setting up, we always encourage those who can to take the accommodation allowance if they need to make their own decisions around how to meet their needs, whether that's staying at a hotel, campground, or with family and friends. Encourage everyone to pre-register as well for emergency support services, ess.gov.bc.ca, and you can always find the most up-to-date information around evacuation orders and alerts on local governments' websites and also on Emergency Info BC. Thank you. So on Emergency Info BC. Thank you.
I'll also turn it to Minister Parmar for additional comment.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just wanted to add, from my perspective, I had an opportunity to speak to the mayor yesterday. Don is an outstanding leader in his community. He is a strong advocate, and we've had conversations over the course of the last year about the concerns that he has had around the risk of wildfire to his community. We are working very closely and will continue to do so. As Hugh touched on in his remarks, we've got a lot of resources that are on their way and on the ground supporting that community, in particular the two wildfires of note. Difficult terrain. And no doubt challenges ahead with weather and patterns. But I do want to give a shout out to Don, his council, for the work that they have been doing in active forest management. We have a very strong partnership with them, specifically looking at their biggest valuable asset that they have and any community has, and that is their watershed and their fear of that being put at risk to a wildfire. So in partnership with BC Timber Sales and other forestry partners, we've been looking at doing some very selective logging, partial harvesting, commercial thinning, small light touch forestry to be able to help protect that watershed and help protect that community as well. So I want to thank Don for being a very strong leader in our province and certainly showing the role that local governments can play as well.
Trevor, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, this will probably be for Minister Parmar. Just wondering how BC Wildfire Service staffing and resources are holding up, given that we're seeing increased wildfire activity across the province. And second to that, I'm curious, there's a pretty visible wildfire from Creston that's located south of the border in the Idaho Panhandle. And I know you mentioned this in your opening remarks, but I'm curious if, given some international tension, if any mutual aid, firefighting mutual aid agreements are being impacted by some of the hot air coming south of the border.
Yeah, maybe on the last part, not at all. If our friends and cousins down south need our help and we're in a position to provide that help, we will. And we've certainly shown that. We have an outstanding mutual aid agreement with CAL FIRE. I regularly have conversations with my counterparts, as I'm sure Curtis and the BC Wildfire Service do on probably a daily basis. We're going through the same thing. Wildfires don't respect borders. And you don't see me standing up here at a podium complaining about the smoke that's coming from down south up here to Victoria and Vancouver. My immediate concern is the residents in those states and the impact that smoke and those fires are having on them. And so we will always be there to help support our neighbors. To the earlier part of your question, and I'll certainly ask Curtis to add anything, we are very well positioned at this time as an organization to continue fighting the fires that we have. We have strong partnerships across the country. We have been able to support other jurisdictions in the earlier part of the wildfire season. In particular, I think of resources that we've sent to Quebec most recently in the Northwest Territories. But at this time, we have all of our crews ready to go and certainly pre-positioned where they need to be. If it gets to a point where we are going to require resources from elsewhere in the country or elsewhere in the world, we'll work with CIFC, the Canadian Interagency organization that helps facilitate wildland firefighters domestically here in Canada, as well as other resources internationally to be able to get those resources we need. But I'll certainly turn it over to Curtis for anything you might have to
just to add to the CIFC piece too, we are in constant contact through CIFC with the national picture and an understanding of what other jurisdictions are going through. As the minister mentioned, we've been supporting both Quebec and Northwest Territories earlier in the season. Those resources are scheduled to be returning back to BC this week, being able to reset and be ready to go. As well, just with respect to the fire south of Creston, in addition to some of the agreements we have with places like CAL FIRE, we operate with what's called the Northwest Compact Agreement, which gives us the ability to be able to move back and forth pretty seamlessly across the border and support our partners to the south, as well as have them come up and support us in times of need. When it comes to the numbers around how well we are positioned, we do currently have 762 personnel actively engaged, while at the same time having 713 additional personnel on preparedness. We'll have other staff as well that will be in their rest and reset cycle, which we will continually be doing to manage staff fatigue through the winter. The minister mentioned partnerships, very important in respect to how we work with local fire departments. There are currently 151 structure protection and defense personnel involved in the response right now that's across 28 different fire departments in the province. And I believe our last update, we had over 70 pieces of heavy equipment active right now with an additional number on standby.
That's all the questions we have today. Thank you everyone for joining. This concludes the Media Avail.
Thank you.